Friends, at this time we are about to begin services for Cyril Jablo. I would ask if anyone has a cell phone or any other noise-making device, if you'll take a moment, please, to turn that off or place it in the silent mode. And at this point, we will begin the services by escorting Mr. Jablo up to the gravesite.
We have one congregation member, the legal at his rent, 70-some years. Louis? 70. But they were married like 19. They were. Cute. I call them the little couples.
Are we waiting for someone? Daddy, are we waiting?
To begin with.
I don't think so. I don't know. Yeah, they got little.
I was thinking about coming, but oh, I thought the show was right.
But now it's here. We're always here to start, so we're always here. They're wonderful.
Kol omer kra, ve'amar ma'akra. Kol habasar chatzir v'chol chasto ketzitz hasadeh. Yavesh chatzir navel tzitz kiroch Adonai nashbabo. Achein chatzir ha'am. Yavesh chatzir navel tzitz udvar lechenu yakum le'olam. Jack, do you want to say anything?
And again, friends, at this time we are beginning services for Cyril Jablo. Officiating our services today is Rabbi Jeffrey Weil, Ezra Habanim, the Niles Township Jewish Congregation.
We'll begin with the ancient ritual of Kriya. Kriya means tearing. And Sally and Ann and Brian, you have your Kriya ribbons. So, Sally, you have a ribbon on you as well? Oh, yeah, you do. So first you'll say this following blessing after me, which acknowledges God even during sad times as the judge of truth. So please repeat after me. Baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
Eloheinu melech haolam,
dayan
dayan
ha'emet.
ha'emet.
Amen. Praise are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, the judge of truth. Amen. Do you guys want to sit down? Or whatever you want to. You're welcome to. You're welcome to be seated if you like. Adonai, ma Adam v'teda ehu, ben enosh v'techash vehu. Adam lehevel dama, yamav kitzel over b'boki yatzitz v'chalaf le'erev yimolel v'yavesh. Tashev enosh adaka v'tomer shuvu v'nei Adam. These are the words of the psalmist saying, Adonai, eternal God, what are we that you have regard for us? What are we that you would even be mindful of us? We're all like a breath. Our days are a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up and is renewed, and in the evening it fades and withers. But God, you cause all of us to return unto dust, saying, Shuvu v'nei Adam, return, O mortal ones. Would that we were wise. Would that we understood whither we go from here. For when we die, we carry nothing with us, not our riches, not our glory. But God, you say, Shmor tam urei yashar. Mark the wholehearted. Behold the upright. Those are the ones who shall find shalom, who shall find peace. And friends, I can't imagine a more wholehearted and upright person than Cyril Jablo, whom we have lost and to whom we say goodbye. In times of sadness, our scriptures have something to say actually for every time of our lives. In times of joy, there are verses for that, and verses for times of sadness as well. And so we will read in a moment the 23rd Psalm, and I'll read it in Hebrew, and then you can read it. We'll read it together in English. It's on your handouts. Psalm 23. Does everyone have a handout? Adonai ro'i lo echzar, bino desher yarbitzeni, al mei menochot inahaleni nafshi yeshovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek l'ma'an shemo, gam ki elech b'geit salmavet, lo irora, ki ata imadi, shivtecha mishantecha, hema yinachamuni, ta'aroch l'fanai shulchan neged sorai, dishanta v'shem roshi, kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chaya, v'shafti b'veit Adonai l'orach yamim. We read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The verses of Kohelet, the third chapter of Kohelet or Ecclesiastes, express this idea that things in the world are unfolding in a way that they're meant to unfold, even though at times life challenges that idea that things are meant to be. But our tradition nudges us in the direction to believe that there's a season for everything, that everything comes at an appropriate time. La kol zman ve'et l'chol chefetz tachat hashamayim. Eit laledet ve'eit lamut, eit lata'at ve'eit la'akor natua, eit lifrot ve'eit livnot, eit livkot ve'eit lischok, eit tzvod ve'eit rukod. For everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot that which is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace, a time when we must refrain from our embraces, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time for silence and a time for speaking. And so this is an appropriate time to speak about Cyril Jablo. There's actually a midrash on Ecclesiastes, and a sort of elaboration or story about the book of Ecclesiastes from which I just read. And it talks about a man who is on the shore or on a pier, and he's watching one boat leave the port and another boat come into the port. And he's watching as people are cheering the boat as it's leaving, which is a custom. The boat leaves and people cheer the departing boat. And this is strange, thinks the man. It's strange that people will cheer a boat as it's leaving because you don't know what's going to happen to that boat on its journey or its voyage. Will it succeed in its mission? Will it be met by any kind of danger? Will it reach its destination? Will it come back safely, and so forth? What he said, really what we should do is cheer a boat when it returns to the ports, because then you'll know that it has returned safely. Then you'll be able to assess its journey. Has it been successful? Well, this moment right now is no time for cheering, obviously, or rejoicing. I feel like we still gather at this point with a sense of fullness and gratitude for the life of Cyril Jablo and for having known him and have been so close to him. His boat has returned to the ports now, and we know the details of the journey of his life. It was a life and a journey of love It was a life and a journey of kindness, of selfless devotion to others, of service to community, whatever that community might be, the neighborhood, synagogues, his nation, and yes, primarily of love, a journey of love. For he was a loving brother and uncle. He was a devoted and loving father, father-in-law, and grandfather to Brian and Ann and Anna Lynn and Leah and Daniel. And he was, of course, a loving and devoted, and I would say very lucky husband to Sally throughout their 54 years of marriage, whereas Sally corrected me, 54 good years together. Cy was born the son of Francis and Sydney, older brother to his dear brother Steve, 9 years older than Steve. May they all now rest in peace. He was raised in Rogers Park on Bell, just a little bit east of where Brian and family have lived for many years. Cy graduated from Sullivan High School, and then he went on to Columbia College to study advertising, and he joined the Army. Cy Jablo was a soldier. It is unclear exactly how this young soldier fared during basic training, but he found his place. He found his place in the Army, serving as an assistant to the chaplain, which is really fitting for Cy. For over the years, he assisted his own religious communities at Northwest Suburban and at our congregation, Ezra Habanim, the Niles Township Jewish congregation. He was president of 2 men's clubs. That's devotion. Cy began work. He worked as a print production manager for advertising agencies. He worked hard through a long and successful and enjoyable career. He did not rush to marry. He was waiting for the right girl, and there was a girl out there who was waiting for the right guy. And when Sally moved out of her parents' home, and she moved in with a high school friend in the Sandberg apartments, right? When it's like a siren went out, and all the guys started calling. 4 men called, 4 young men called, and the 5th man to call was Cy. There would not be a 6th caller. On their first date, they went to a beautiful restaurant in Chicago. Interesting fact, Cy was an early adopter of contact lenses. At the time, they were the sort of the clunky, hard version of contact lenses. And during that first date, the contact lenses kept popping out of his eyes. And I tell you, Sally, it takes a special young woman to find that charming. But you did, and they would look. They'd come out, they'd look for them, he'd put them back in, I guess, and continue. Cy, at that point, did not know that Sally actually likes bespectacled men. So they married after just a few months of dating, and they soon moved to Chesterfield, the Chesterfield development of homes in Niles, where they remained for a long time, well over 5 decades. It was a neighborhood of young families, including long-time friends and fellow congregants, the Steigmans. Cy worked hard, but nothing would eclipse his devotion to his family. On nights when he came home late, and that was sometimes necessary, Cy would head to Brian and Annie's rooms, and they would chat. Perhaps they would chat about Gilligan's Island, and Cy would sing to them as well. And we might hear more about that later from Brian, but he would sing a charming song about having a wonderful son and having a wonderful daughter. And this is how he felt about his children and how he made them feel about themselves. Cy, honestly, and everyone who is here and here virtually, we can all attest to this, he made everyone feel good. He was that kind of person. I've spoken about Cy, besides having known him for the last 8.5 years or so, but I've spoken about Cy to many people over the last couple of days in particular, and it is amazing. They all basically say the same thing about Cy Jablo. He was kind, that word keeps coming up. He was a gentleman. He was sweet, or Shelley Malina said, he was a sweetie. And he was. That's how we feel about him at the congregation. He and Sally, you and Cy have just been a part of our community, as has the rest of the family, and Cy will be very much missed as no longer being part of that community. Cy, I will say, thrived in community. He was a community-oriented person, whatever that community was. Like at the Chesterfield. On winter mornings, he would be found scraping the ice off not a windshield, but windshields, his own car and neighbors' cars as well. He also took it upon himself to collect funds from neighbors for gardening services and other services, a task that he continued for decades. Cy formed true friendships in Chesterfield, including with Armin, who was here, to whom Cy Jablo was like a father. Cy was a relational person. His life revolved around relationships. His co-workers loved him. Brian and Ann's friends loved him. When you guys were teenagers and friends would come over, Cy and Sally, like some of us try to do, you wouldn't hide out. You would actually come on out, and you would hug, and you would kiss, and you would chat with these young people. And then there was a whole lot more hugging and kissing as the Jablo family grew. Cy and Sally wholeheartedly, lovingly welcomed Anna Lynn into the family. And for Anna Lynn, her father-in-law was truly like a father. And then Leah and Daniel, shining lights, in the words of your grandmother. And I'll tell you, I'm not sure that I've ever had a conversation with your grandparents, with either one of them or both of them together, in which the conversation did not lead to Leah and Daniel somehow. We could be talking about Israel or politics or men's club finances, and it would always come back to Leah and Daniel, actually. But and how much they adore you and how much your papa adored you. But truly, you both deserve it. It's just such a wonderful family. The apple does not fall far from the tree in the Jablo family. Cy also loved his buddies, his friends from the old days, friends from work, from, of course, the Romeos as well, who would meet at Cappy's for lunch. And can anyone really imagine not being happy sitting at a table at which Cy Jablo was also sitting? Who wouldn't enjoy the company of that man? This surely includes the Jablo's helpers over the last few years, June and Kevin and George and Joe. The Jablo family is tremendously grateful to you. And at the synagogue, just as Cy and Sally had your regular seats in the sanctuary on Shabbat mornings, you also had your regular roles in the Purim spiels. And Cy, many of us will recall one of the most iconic lines in the Purim spiels when Cy comes out and does his best Arnold Schwarzenegger's declaring, "I'll be back." And who could forget the songs, curiously both by the Doors, that Sally sang to Cy on stage. You romanced him with "Hello, I Love You," which you did and you do. And you were like a siren once again as you bid your man in front of hundreds of people to light her fire, which he did. And that fire of romance lasted for 54 years. 4 years ago, I was very pleased that Cy and Sally were part of a congregational trip to Israel. And I remember very, very clearly Cy standing by the Western Wall. He stood alone. I took a picture of the moment. And I was wondering about his prayer as he stood at the Western Wall, something that I'm sure he had looked forward to for a long, long time. What was he thinking at that moment? Perhaps he was expressing gratitude to God for the good life he had had thus far. Perhaps he was feeling grateful for his career, for his friends, for the extended family. Perhaps he was remembering his parents or his brother Steve, whose passing a few years ago was a very heavy sadness for Cy, the older brother. And of course, he was praying for his own children and grandchildren, for nothing was more important to Cy than their health and their safety. And yes, we all know that Cy was thanking the Lord for Sally, his partner for more than 5 decades, the woman who sang to him throughout the years, the woman who brought tears to his eyes when she sang, especially when she sang their song, "Our Love is Here to Stay." And it is. Despite his passing, the love stays. My dear friends, the Jablos, you look ahead to a strange Thanksgiving without him. But may you nonetheless give thanks. Thanks for the life that he led, for the care that he conveyed, for the love that he gave, and for the true blessing that he was. Zichrono livracha. May his memory be for blessing. Amen. Brian?
If ever there was a contender for the nicest, most kind-hearted person you could meet, it could be our dad. He was a terrific dad, papa, husband, and friend. And when my sister and I were little, as Rabbi said, I remember him coming to our rooms after coming home kind of late from work and just talking to us, every night for a while, and listening patiently while I told him stories about my day or described the plot of some inane TV show or something like that, and he would always sing to us as well, and he would sing like I remember also like the Brahms lullaby, where he would tell all the people who loved us, like he'd say, your mommy loves you and your daddy loves you too, your Papa and Babette love you, and Bubby and Grandpa Louie love you. He would sing about all the people that loved us to us. And and he loved to laugh. He told many, dad jokes, which made us groan and stuff in the back seat of our car. And I will relay my favorite dad joke, which is he would say, you'd say my wife's a teacher, which is true, and before I met her, I dated 2 other teachers, but it didn't work out because one had no principals and the other one had no class. And now as a music teacher, during our assemblies, I've told that joke several times to the kids and to all the audience, and made them groan as well, So I don't recall my father ever having an unkind word for anyone, which I think is a rare thing, almost every time, everyone, has moments when they talk unkindly about people or say something, but the same person that you would see to your face was the same person he was. Always. He was pretty gregarious. He loved to talk and laugh with the people at the congregation and with his good friends that he ate lunch with, and including our late cousin Harvey Bander and his circle of friends. It meant a lot to him, as Rabbi said, the connection to people, to his friends, to the congregation. And he loved you all, and he loved and Rabbi, I want to thank you for the love you showed my dad and our family, and especially for organizing the trip to Israel a few years ago, which gave my dad an opportunity to go there for the first time, and for all the people that helped him and my mom throughout that journey. I want to acknowledge my in-laws, my brother Ariel and Zenaida, Alma, Mai, and the kids. And you've always treated my dad with really great kindness, and you are, and he saw you as an important part of our family too, and we appreciate you and we love you. I want to express my gratitude to his team of caregivers, Joe, George, June, and Kevin, who my dad and mom relied on in his final years as his health declined from Parkinson's. Caring for my dad and providing my mom with good company. And you have also become like family to us. As Rabbi said, he loved his brother Steve so much, and his kin, and Samantha and Shayna and Rachel, and in these last couple years, sometimes he would call Steve's name and stuff at night, and he was always in his thoughts, I think. Armin, I know he viewed you like another son, and he treated you with great kindness, and you did to him too, and he loved you too. Of course, he loved his grandchildren, so much, Leah and Daniel, and he was so genuinely happy in your company. And he truly was in love with the love of his life, my mom, Sally. He loved to hear you sing. And even as his Parkinson's, making it harder for him to convey his thoughts, when my mom would sing, you often see him start to tear up, and he was your biggest fan, right? And I'll conclude with words from my sister, Ann Gale, as I call her. I can't resist that. I'm sorry. My father, Cy, was a true mensch. The best example of how humans should behave. He was a kind, gentle, funny, and generous soul, and we will be dearly missed by all who knew him. Rest in peace, Dad, and may your wonderful memory be a blessing.
Thank you. Leida hi reshit, uftirat tachlit hachaim kamasahem, kahalicha simacha, b'shalav l'shalav. Birth is a beginning, death is a destination, life is a journey, a going and a growing from stage to stage. And sadly, that journey of Cyril Jablo has now reached its conclusion. In his sorrow, Job in the Bible cried out, Adonai Natan, v'Adonai Lakach, Yehishim Adonai Mevorach. The Lord has given, the Lord has taken. Blessed be the name of the eternal God. And so, O God, into your care we entrust the spirit of Cyril Jablo, for you keep faith with your children in death as in life. Sustain us, O God, that we may meet with serenity the mysteries that lie ahead for us, knowing that when we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you, O God, will be with us as a loving friend in whom we put our trust. You are the light of our lives and our hope in eternity. And now, if it's comfortable for you to do so, please rise for the El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer. It's okay, you're on. It's fine. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezoha Rakia Masirim, Et Nishmat Yisrael ben Shimon v'Fegela, Shahalach le'olamo, Ba'al harachamim yastirehu, V'seter kenafav le'olamim, V'yitzor b'tzor ha'chaim et nishmato, Adonai hu nachalato, V'yanuach b'shalom, Al mishkavo, V'nomar, Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence with the holy and the pure who shine like the glow of the heavens to Cyril Jablo, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let him find refuge in your eternal presence and within the shadow of your wings. Let his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is his inheritance. May he rest in peace. And we say, Amen. You may be seated.
Yeah, I just,
1 second.
out of my scribble, I just made up one
Sure.
oversight. I just wanted to say how much he truly loved you, my wife, and embraced you as his daughter, and the kindness that you showed him.
Thank you. Thank you. Hatzor tamim pa'alo ki chol derachav mishpat. El umna ve'ein avel. Tzadik v'yasharhu. Hatzor tamim bechol po'al mi yomar lo mi taf'al ma tif'al. Hasholit b'matav ma'al mi v'chayeh. Marit sha'ol v'ya'al hatzor tamim bechol ma'aseh mi yomar lo ma ta'aseh. Tzadik ata Adonai l'chamit l'hachayot asher b'yadcha pikton kol ruchot. Chalila lecha zichronenu, nimchot v'hiyut na inecha barachamim alinu b'kocho ki lecha adon harachamim v'haslichot. Baruch Dayan ha'emet, we praise you, Judge of truth, who ordains death and summons us unto life. Help us, O God, to feel your presence in this time of sadness, so that we may all declare that God is upright, our Tzur, our rock, in whom there is no unrighteousness. Amen. It is customary to put earth from the land of Israel into the grave of a Jewish person. Cy and Sally made it to the land of Israel, so I'm so pleased about that. And we put this in there as a hope for a messianic age, really a prayer, the enduring hope for a better future for all of humanity. Al Mikomo Yavo B'Shalom. May Cyril Jablo come to his eternal home in peace. It is customary to put 3 measurefuls of earth into the grave of a loved one. It's also customary, if you can, to put the trowel back in the pail, so the next person can come take it sort of as an affirmative gesture on his or her own. And there are gloves, right? So each one could take a set of a glove and do put the 3 measurefuls in, and then put the trowel back in. The next person will do the same thing. So you're welcome to come forward now to do this, which we consider a final mitzvah on behalf of a loved one.
For those of you joining us via the live stream, once everyone's had a chance to place some earth in the grave, the rabbi will conclude the service with Kaddish, and at that time we will end the live stream, and we thank you very much for attending.
Has everyone who's wanted to do it participated? Thanks, that's good. You'll find Mourner's Kaddish on your handouts. Okay. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei be'amlich machutei. Be'chayichon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'yizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'lamei amaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh. Yit hadar, v'yit dalev, v'yit halal, shmei dekudasha, b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechamata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei shlam rabba min shemaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. Amen. Zichrono livracha. May Cyril Jablo's memory be for blessing. Amen. Thank you all very much.